Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I have the opportunity to work on a Penn Battle. This is a Penn Battle II. It's the 2500 series. This one was sent in by Mark, and Mark tells me that under load it's having an anti-reverse issue where it's just pulling off. He says he can correct it by moving the override switch, which was unique to the Battle IIs in the 2500 series. After that, they pretty much went to the one-way clutch. But whenever I get a concern with that, it's best just to simply replace the clutch, and that way you can rest assured that if the part is broken or otherwise, you don't have to do double or triple work trying to save that clutch. It's very hard to do, so it's just as well that you can get the replacement. Oh, where do you get those replacements? I'm often asked. A shout out to my friends at mysticparts.com. They're located in New Jersey. They're a great group. They're authorized Penn parts resellers, and they have just about every part that's available for Penn reels. So again, mysticparts.com for those of you that continually ask where you can get those Penn parts. Well, the Penn Battle II is a nice reel. I think we're on Battle 4s now, maybe. They just keep changing the generations. This was the top end of the line that included the Pursuit, the Fierce, and the Battle. It was in those lines that also had things like Conquest in that. And the Battle seems to have survived where some of the others have moved on. Of course, you still have the Fierce lineup as well. Well, in order to service this reel, we're going to start by taking off the exterior pieces and parts. As we do, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. If you do subscribe to my channel, please use that notification button. That'll let you know when I'm posting videos, and you make a determination as to whether that's a video you want to see. I removed the spool. I did that by removing the adjuster button, and now we have the axle shaft and the internal workings here. One of the things that's easiest to do on these, this does not have a case that goes through, so it's to remove the case from below and then pull that axle shaft. Here's your difference between a Fierce and a Battle, essentially, is that the Battle has a ball bearing for the spool up top. Well, to remove the lower case, we start by taking off the handle. That comes off by turning it opposite of the way you would turn the reel to crank line. And the reason I say that is if you've got this mounted on the other side, it's reverse what you're doing on this side. We're going to next take off the bump guard. While we do this, I want to encourage you to take pictures along the way. If you're working on a reel and you're not familiar with that reel, a picture will help you an awful lot. You can also get the schematics for the reel, and that aforementioned mysticparts.com also has the schematics for most of the Penn fishing reels. So if you get stuck and you need the exploded view, go ahead and get that schematic as well. I needed to access that schematic to get the part numbers for the anti-reverse clutch and the spring. When I replace those clutches, I always like to get that spring. That spring is a very small spring. I don't know why they do it that way, but they do. And if you shoot that spring, you might be delayed by a week or so ordering another one, so it doesn't hurt to pay the extra $1.30 or whatever the spring cost. Not only to replace that, but also just as a backup in case, one of them shoots. Okay, when I take these screws out, I want to put them onto my table. I protect my table. That's a board that I have underneath here. It's getting well worn. This was actually a gift from Cons, who is a channel viewer, and it's protected my table. Not that my table is anything to write home about here, but I'd rather just keep replacing the board than kind of chunking into the table there. When I was recently up on a trip to Manchester, Vermont, I stopped in to see the Orvis Rod Manufacturing shop. They have an open tour. And one of the interesting things was they had a table there that's probably been used for generations, and you could actually see the wear and the rut on that table where they were doing an abrasive piece. I think they were sanding down the rod blanks or something. All right, we've removed this side plate. We have a sealed bearing underneath that. And now we can access the screw that holds the crosswind block and the axle shaft. That'll enable me to pull that out. When I take my pieces and parts off, I use a parts tray. Mine is kind of organized chaos. I just kind of take pieces from certain assemblies and put them in different corners of the tray. And that's a good place to know where those pieces and parts are going to be when it comes time to reassemble the reel. There's lots of different systems for managing your pieces and parts as you go through the disassembly and reassembly. I don't care which one you use, but come into your rod building and your reel repair and the like with a plan. So this is how I'm going to do it when I take the pieces and parts off, so that when I take the pieces and parts off, I don't lose them. Well, we can see the reel does need service, and Mark did say that, and he also said it was skipping. So we're just going to take the main gear, the crosswind block, crosswind gear, and the axle shafts out. We'll clean them up, put them into the parts tray. Now, reel repairs is pretty straightforward. You're going to do basically three things. You're going to want to take the reel apart and examine it, make sure that all the pieces and parts are in good condition. If they're not, or if you're aware of a failure going in, like this one with the clutch, you're going to want to make sure that you get the replacement part. Next thing you want to do is clean it up. You want to get all that old grease and dirt out of there. Sort of like an oil change. You want to take all the old oil out of your car before you put the new stuff back in. And the last part is just relubing, making sure that it has the appropriate lubrications, and by appropriate I mean lubrications that are designed for fishing reels, before you put it back together again. There's only one more piece to do here. That's to clean the case. I did notice that there's some of that old kind of gunky grease. Now what I would speculate here is this is not the Penn grease that came with the reel. The reel is probably 5 or 6 years old. I would hope it was serviced, and whatever greases were used in that service, well, it wasn't the Penn grease. That doesn't matter, but by the gumminess of it, I'm wondering if it was fishing reel grease at all. That's why I encourage you to use only products designed for fishing reels as lubricants. There is a bearing back here. Again, that's a sealed bearing. So what we want to do next is we want to come up top here and remove the rotor. That's where the anti-reverse clutch is going to be underneath. So we're going to take the screw out for that, find an appropriate little corner in my case, remove the hold down clamp for the rotor nut. And I'm always get messed up with this. I think they changed this. Yeah, the nut should be a 12 millimeter nut. That's not. It's an 11. I just like to make sure that I take my time here to thank all you channel viewers and to encourage you to ask questions while I find the right tools. So if you have a question on this reel or any reel in particular, just leave that question in the comments section of this video, and we'll try to answer that question for you. There's a shim washer under the nut. We're going to remove that now. Also notice that there's a little plastic ferrule inside this pinion gear. If for some reason you find a little cone-shaped white plastic piece around. Here's how you set up that little spring. So we're going to have fun with that a little later. But right now I'm going to disconnect the one side of it. And actually, I think that might have just told me an easy way to do this, because it's not an easy task. But maybe what you do is you can put that on there before you put the collar back on. Take a picture here. That's not a symmetric collar. There is a flat side to it. The flat side faces back towards that override switch. Again, just like we did with the side plate screws, I want to take the 3 of them out and make sure that they're all the same size. And if they're not, mark the spot where the longer or the shorter or the fatter or the thinner came out of. Now, most of the time they are the same. It'll only happen when you aren't checking that, well, something will be different. I just opened up a reel the other day, and they were hiding a small case screw under the bump guard. There was a different size screw. All right, this whole thing should lift out now, including the bottom end of this. So let's pull that out. And I would say that the anti-reverse on this one was probably failing because it got over-greased. What happens with this, unfortunately, is that the greases get into the anti-reverse mechanism, and the anti-reverse mechanism is a friction-driven device. So grease is going to eliminate friction, and you can see we're just spinning it here. But yeah, look at how coated that collar is on this. So you could have taken your chances on this one, wiped it all down, flushed out the anti-reverse, done all of those kinds of things, and hoped that you can do it. My experience has been that once that grease gets inside that clutch, it's very hard to get it all out, and sooner or later it fails again. So we'll just say that the cause of this failure was that it was just totally over-greased. All right, I've wiped it off. I've gone and examined now all of the teeth. The channels are nice and clear. There's a little washer that's going to be a bearing shield. And what we want to do now is use fishing reel grease. I'm using Penn Precision reel grease to coat the gear teeth or the pinion gear. You can also put a little bit on the shaft there where that bearing is going to ride. Again, they're sealed bearings, so you don't necessarily need to oil or grease them. But what we need to do next is go over and grab the new anti-reverse clutch. And again, I mentioned there's two things that are going on here. One of them is that clutch itself that has failed. The other thing is that little spring. So I'm going to take my glove off here. I use that glove to protect myself from the debris and chemicals and greases and dirt and everything else that's inside those reels when I'm doing the cleaning. But in this case, I'm just already anticipating that that little spring is going to be fun to play with, so I'm going to need all the dexterity that I can get. So the 2500 is one of the smaller ones, if not the smallest in the Battle series. Penn has always been known for saltwater reels, not so much for freshwater reels. Every now and then they venture into doing a bait caster, or they do a fly reel. I think I just saw that they did a fly reel. It's always fun, but it's not been their bread and butter all the way going back to the 1930s when they first started releasing fishing reels. And about the 2500 is about the smallest that they do. Okay, I'm having trouble with this one already, and that's just getting it out of the package, right? Wow. Wow. Always makes me wonder how they do this in the plant. Because if I struggle with it, well, I'm not working in a plant, but struggling with it here. All right, we've got that on. I'll tell you what, I am not very confident about that one being on there. It's just hanging on by a little hook. Hopefully we won't lose that. If we do, we get a backup plan. We have the one on the other side. Next up, then, we want to load the collar and the gear. Then we have a two-piece assembly here. The one side of this silver collar has an indent on it. The other side is flush. The flush side faces to the top. The indent is there because, as you can see, that collar extends beyond the trip assembly and the roller clutch. So this is our stack. Well, with a little bit of hope, you want to line these two outer ridges or studs into the two ridges in the case. Bring that down and watch that little spring that you put on there. And it came off, but fortunately it came off on my table and I can see it. So I'm going to go right now and I'm just going to cover that spring so I don't knock it over. I'm going to go back to the carrier, a little tie down. I'm going to put this on. And this goes on with the 3 screws that we took off earlier. Okay, that's one. Line the second one up. So those little screws were the way that a lot of these companies, springs rather, the way that these companies figured out how to override that anti-reverse. Unfortunately, it's not the easiest thing when it comes to service and repair. I've seen these on a lot of them, Shimano's, Okuma's, the like. And it's just one of those, you need an awful lot of patience as you're working on this to get this done correctly. Okay, shut the camera off for a moment there. I needed to take a break just to gather myself. You need a lot of patience when you do this. I'm going to say it's a shame that you didn't see me put that in, but it's not a shame. Wasn't easy. I did discover why this clutch failed when I was just removing the pieces. One of the rollers from that clutch, right there, was loose, fell out. So it had a broken clutch that needed to be replaced and couldn't be rebuilt anyway. That's on. All right, the spring is on, the override is working. Next thing we want to do is just get this rotor back on, cover all that up. This has got a cap nut on it. The cap nut so that you don't over tighten it. Hand tighten it as best you can before you proceed. That way you won't cross strip your mounting on the pinion gear, which unfortunately, we go to that 11 again, unfortunately happens way too much from what I see. I'm going to take the tie down at this point. Put that on. The hold down screw. And we'll spin it and make sure that it's working. While I have the rotor open and at hand here, I'm going to put a shot of oil into both seams of the bail and onto the roll of the bearing. Just work it in. All right, let's give it a spin. Spins nicely and it holds. We have that override. Let's flip that. Yep, spins backwards. Put it back into position. Stops. That's exactly what that should be doing. Let's finish out the reel then. Next up, we've cleaned our oscillation gear. So we're going to put a little bit of grease onto the back. This gets grease everywhere. Into the hole where it's going to ride on that little stud in the case. Onto the teeth. And onto the face. I know a lot of folks have asked about that grease. I mentioned it earlier. I use Penn Precision reel grease. Not because this is a Penn reel, but because it's fishing reel grease. And I only recommend that you use fishing reel grease. I've seen too many examples of other kinds of greases being used in reels, and all I make is a mess. Okay, I've greased the slot on the crosswind block, and we've just put that in. Make sure that it's over the stud. Oops, oh, that was an oops. Something wasn't feeling right there, and I tilted it and unfortunately lost it, but easy enough recovery. If that's not on the stud, you're not going to get the up and down movement. You're going to get this stopping at some point. For whatever reason, I'm just, there we go. All right, that's in now. Let's grease the main gear. I'm reversing the process of the way we took this off. Good amount of grease onto the teeth. Now you saw me clean up the grease on the inside of this dish here, and that happens because centrifugal force will spin this grease off. That goes on next. Now we're ready for the axle shaft. Make sure you wipe the axle shaft clean. If there's any kind of debris on it, make sure it gets off. There is a flat spot on the axle shaft. That's going to face you as you put that in, and that will insert into the crosswind block. Just push down on that until it seats, and align the hole in the axle shaft with the hole in the crosswind block on your parts tray where you put that block piece, the screw. Next we'll put that screw in, and that'll tie the assembly up. Okay. If you want to see how the reel works now, just turn it. You'll see that the crosswind block is driven by the gears on the back of the main gear, and that it goes up and down, moving your shaft up and down. The main gear is being responsible for turning the rotor. Okay. There's a couple of shim washers that go on the main gear. Those take out the play from side to side. They're put on at the factory. So trust the factory if you're just reinstalling the same gears. If you're changing the main gear, you may find that you have a rough performance of the reel. And there what you want to check for is the shim gears, because there is a variance within the milling of those main gears, and sometimes you need one shim, sometimes you'll find 3 on there, sometimes you'll find 2, but usually you'll find at least 1. Okay, we're going to put the 3 side plate screws in now. It doesn't matter which sequence you put these in because it's just a triangle. If you had 4, for example, you would want to go high, low, side to side. To kind of keep the tension equal on the case as you're tightening it down. In this case, the 3 are kind of equal distance, so it doesn't matter. Okay, one more of these. Also, the advantage to the parts tray is you can always look in there, and if you find parts that are still there, you can get a little bit alarmed. You'll figure out where those parts belong. It's not the case here. The tray's almost empty, and the parts that are in there I recognize. All right, just tighten down all 3 of those. We have the bump guard goes next. Now this is meant to stop the case from fracturing if you drop the reel or hit the reel on a pillar or something on a boat, maybe a rail. The bump guard would break first. That's kind of a fail-safe. I guess Penn figured a lot of people are going to drop the reel or hit the reel, so they put it there. A lot of manufacturers have done that. Okay, let's get some of these tools off the desk here. We've got the handle goes next. That screws into the main gear. And then we can go service the drag washers up top here. That's kind of interesting. The pyramid is bent. I don't know why that is. These usually come straight out, but we'll go with what's there. We should have HT100 drag washers in here. We do. This is the newer system that uses the drag washer as the eared washer and puts the round metal washers in between. So these, you're optional to grease. Penn has got grease on there, and there's plenty of it on there. Take the four corners on this one and make sure that they go into the slots in the case. Wipe off the metals. And you alternate the HT100 washer with the metal washers, starting with the HT100 washers. Now this reel does not have a lot of max drag. Max drag is a function of surface area. Not a lot of surface area in this one, but then again the 2500 series reel is not going to fight 60-pound shark. It's not designed for it anyway. You might catch one. Not designed for it, and so the drag systems are a little bit different as well. Okay, you want to make sure that you lock the clip into the grooves, and then we can mount that onto the reel and see how we did. While we're mounting that, I'm going to just take a moment here. There's a little bit of film on that. I'm going to use Penn Precision Reel Cleaner, rod and reel cleaner. Just kind of mop off that kind of film that's on the spool there. It's a general cleaner. You can do that on the case as well. It's good for cleaning up film, getting rid of some of the oils on them there and the like. Doesn't hurt to clean up your reels as you're working on your project. Now, let's put this back on. Review what we did. Well, the reel came in with an anti-reverse failure under load when he was fighting a fish. We decided right away that we would go ahead and get the anti-reverse clutch because that's the only thing that's really managing that. And well, we found out that that clutch was broken, that one of the roller bearings had come loose. We also saw that there was an awful lot of grease and the like in there. And so instead of just trying to mop it up and kind of patch it up, we bought the replacement clutch. And now we have a functioning anti-reverse system with the overrides. We also saw that while it's a little bit of a pain in the neck, with patience required to mount that spring to get this done. Fortunately, I saw that, you didn't. It's not in the edits. Okay, let's give it a ride. Nice, still nice, smooth operating reel after a long time. And of course, the most important point is we have that instant anti-reverse again. All right, well that's it. That's your Battle II 2500 with a bad anti-reverse and an override system that allows you to switch it off when you want to fight that fish manually. I hope you've enjoyed that. If you did, again, please subscribe. If you want to see more, please use that notification button. That'll let you know when I'm posting, and you'll be able to determine whether you want to watch that video or not. To our first responders and essential personnel, thank you for everything it is that you do. Special shout out to police and fire and rescue and all the folks that put their lives on the line and their hearts in the right places and trying to help others to lead better lives. To everyone, please stay safe and stay well. Enjoy the art of reel repair. Make sure your favorite reel gets serviced before it's taken fishing for extended periods of time. I know a lot of friends that I'm talking to are talking about heading south over the winter. Going to do some fishing down in Florida and the Keys and things like that. Well, they're going to bring their tackle with them, and I would encourage you before you do that to make certain that you have that all tuned up and ready to go. Nothing worse than getting onto a vacation, anticipating some wonderful fishing, and find out that you've got a mechanical failure that, well, is stopping you from being on the water. Do it now. Enjoy. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.